Hey platform, welcome to another video. Today we are going to be celebrating LGBTQ+ History Month, which is in February in the UK, although it's in different months in different countries. So if you're not from the UK, maybe check out when the History Month is happening where you're from. So what we wanted to do today is basically take a look at some amazing books that we might be able to read and learn more about LGBT history from. The list I pulled together today has all kinds of books in it. So there are non-fiction, poetry, graphic novels, a cookbook, and even an audio collection of different stories and documentaries and things that you can listen to instead of reading. You can grab a pen and a notebook to make a note of any of the books that you think sound interesting to you, but I will also leave links in the description to all of the books so that you can find them if you want to check out more about them. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Queen's English by Chloe O. Davis. So you might not know this, but a lot of words and phrases that we now use in English actually come from LGBTQ+ people. In fact, this book has over 800 words which have their origins in the queer community. The book pairs beautiful illustrations and photographs with everything from like modern gay slang to queer theory terms in academia to like fun colloquialisms. And it's not just the words themselves. The author goes into the history behind the words, the people that use them, you know, people who have shaped the kind of language that we use. This is the kind of book that everyone will be able to learn something from, whether you are in the queer community or not, and will also help you appreciate the amazing contributions that the community has made to our language and our history. This is also a super new book. It was released like 6 months ago. So if you're looking for a present for a queer person who seems to have like every LGBTQ+ book going, this might be a great choice. My next recommendation is Gay Britannia. So this is that audiobook that I mentioned earlier, but it's so much more than an audiobook. Basically, it was made in 2019 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, and it essentially pulls together all of the programming that BBC radio stations did during that time. So it has everything from interviews to comedy to documentaries. Like, I have a list here of all the contributors to this program, and it is like incredible. I'm just going to go through and read just like people's names that jump out at me. We have Ben Hunt, Paul O'Grady, Stephen K. Amos, Callum McSwiggan, Peter Tatchell, Ruth Hunt, Simon Callows, Stella Duffy, Shahida Bari, Ollie Alexander, Terrell Alvey McCraney, Sue Perkins, Stephen Fry, Graham Norton, Mae Martin, Sandy Totsvig. Like, the list just keeps going. Essentially, it's like the world's best eclectic queer podcast all rolled into one audio download. If you're looking for something that's going to be in turns like emotional, informative and funny, this is something that you need to listen to. So the third book I'm going to recommend is The Transgender Issue by Sean Fay. So although LGBT History Month is obviously about like the history that's already happened in our community, right? The people who came before us, I think it's also about like the history that we're currently making. And this book is an incredible testament to the lives of trans people today and what Sean Fay hopes will be their future. I'm going to read a little bit of the description of the book because I think it really goes to show how wide-reaching like the research and the reporting in this non-fiction book was. Fay provides a compelling, wide-ranging analysis of trans lives from youth to old age, exploring work, family, housing, healthcare, the prison system, and trans participation in the LGBTQ+ and feminist communities in contemporary Britain and beyond. So that's obviously a lot of topics to cover, but she does it in such an accessible way. It's been written so that it is also accessible to teenage readers. Sometimes it might seem like a lot of the writing and media about queer history or queer issues is very like sad or depressing, but this book also has a big kind of emphasis on the idea of hope, which I think is amazing to see. My fourth recommendation is Tasty Pride. So this is such a fun recipe book. It's essentially a collection of like 70 recipes that are from people within the LGBTQ+ community that also includes their own like stories and anecdotes about food and cooking and community. There are so many cool people who have contributed to this book, including Ruby Tandell, Anthony from Queer Eye, Ottolenghi, like just amazing people from across the spectrum of different kinds of cooking. And the recipes are everything from like soups, starters, salads, main dishes, desserts, snacks, like pretty much everything you could possibly want. If you're someone who's into food and cooking, want to try some different recipes, or are just interested in like the stories behind food, this will be an amazing book for you to pick up. My next recommendation is The Stonewall Reader. This book is an incredible piece of history. Again, it was published in 2019 as the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots came around. It's basically a collection of first-hand sources from the New York Public Library that have been collated together that essentially tell the story of the years just before and after the Stonewall riots. It includes everything from like diary entries to newspaper publications at the time, eyewitness testimonies, like all of these amazing historical sources directly from people who were present at the riots. It gives some amazing access and information to that particular part of queer history, as well as uncovering some more or less known figures from that period as well. If you're someone who's really into history or feels like you were kind of cheated out of learning about a lot of queer history at school, this might be a book for you to check out. The next book on my list is a collection of poetry called Love Speaks Its Name. Essentially, this is like a beautiful collection of queer love poetry over the years from some like incredible iconic poets. Everyone from Shakespeare to Sappho to Walt Whitman. There is quite literally something for everyone here. There are poems which are witty and funny, poems which are like heavily romantic. There are poems that are passionate and moving and ones that are more like deeply perceptive. It's just a really beautiful collection. If you want to feel the warm fuzzies inside, then definitely check this one out. If you are looking for a book about the trans community that goes more into the history, then I highly recommend Trans Britain. Although for some people, the idea of the trans community only really became like mainstream knowledge relatively recently, this obviously wasn't the case for the people actually in the community. And so this book is essentially a collection of writings from people across the trans community, all about life like leading up to and past this point where it became more of a mainstream conversation. There are contributions from everyone from like activists and parents to filmmakers and even a rock musician. The reviews for it are so lovely as well. So it's been described as warm, compassionate, inspiring, profound, quiet, deeply moving, and also by everyone's favourite, Gino Dawson, as bloody good. So that's a pretty good endorsement if you ask me. So my next recommendation is kind of like a personal one. So as you're learning more about queer history and thinking about maybe yourself or your friends or your family who share within that community, you might want to have a little bit of reflection, right? You might want to think about that stuff that you're learning. And so I'm going to recommend Free to Be Me, which is this beautiful like journal that you can fill in yourself from Dom and Ink. So the book itself is full of like activities and advice and information, so you can go through it and learn more about the community and maybe a little bit more about yourself. Dom is such a lovely person. We've had him on the channel before. I'll link the video somewhere if you want to take a look. But essentially this is just like such a lovely like thoughtful book to have or to give to someone. I also wanted to give a couple of recommendations of fiction books that are more like personal histories rather than non-fiction histories. So the first is Fun Home, which you might be familiar with because it's obviously an incredible musical, but it actually was originally based on a graphic novel memoir. So this was written by artist Alison Bechdel and essentially talks about her own life as a woman who was coming to terms with her sexuality, who finds out that her father is also gay. And if you have seen the musical, then you know that it is incredibly emotional, moving, personal, beautiful in so many ways. And this was the original story. So if you liked the musical or you like the sound of it, then definitely check this out. Another piece of media that had its origin in a book is The Miseducation of Cameron Post. You may well have seen the movie. The movie is actually only a tiny, tiny part of the whole book. It is just a stunning book. It wasn't like based on the author Emily Danforth's life, right? It's not an autobiography. It had like some elements she's talked about being like inspired by her life, but it's very different. Essentially, it talks about a girl growing up in the 90s in the US who is sent to gay conversion therapy, and it's kind of like her coming of age story, her figuring out who she is, and it's just like a beautiful, stunning read. And then my final recommendation will be for people who are looking to the future this LGBT History Month. It is the amazing collection of essays, We Can Do Better Than This. Again, the list of contributors to this book is unreal. It is incredible, the people that they got to essentially answer the question, like, where do we go from here? How do we create an incredible, supportive, hopeful, joyous world for queer people? It combines like deeply moving personal stories with kind of like powerful manifestos to talk about yeah, what the future looks like. We have writing here from Lady Phil, from Yasmin Benoit, Amru Al-Qadi, Fox Fisher, Travis Alabanza, like the list goes on. Again, this is a very recent release, only was released last year, so if you're looking for something kind of like a new read that you might not have spotted yet, then give this a try. So those were my recommendations. If you have any others you would love to share, then please put them in the comments. Or if you've read any of these books already and want to second my recommendation, please also do so in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Platform for more bookish videos like this one.